Hey everyone, Happy New Year's and welcome to Eagles Postgame Show presented by Ricoh. I'm Marisa Pilla with Fran Duffy and Ike Reese, and it's the ending to a game no one expected. The Eagles lose 35-31 to the Arizona Cardinals at home, a game that a lot of people thought very much played in favor of Philly. They looked really good in that first half. Third, fourth quarter, completely different story.
Yeah, I got to go back a while to find a game where you feel this empty after the game. You know, considering the way the Eagles played in the first half of this game, up 21-6. You knew the game wasn't over, but you thought the Eagles had pretty good control of the game. And to lose this game at home, very disappointing. Very disappointing, knowing what opportunities were ahead of them, looking at a number 2 seed, potentially having 2 games at home. This is just from a defensive standpoint, as a former defensive player, this is one that hurts pretty bad because it didn't look like we showed up with the type of energy and intensity that you needed to win this game today. Arizona came in offensively and looked like they wanted this game. When you run the ball with the efficiency that the Cardinals ran the ball with today, that takes your man card from you. And so that's the type of feeling I have after a game like this, because I didn't expect anything like this from this football team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, where a team comes into your house and just runs the ball against you at will.
220 yards on the ground, to your point, 5.5 yards a carry for Arizona. Not one punt forced on this game by the Eagles defense. And the second half, 4 drives for Arizona and 4 touchdowns, including a 2-point conversion. So the Eagles let Arizona into the end zone 5 separate times in the second half. That 2-point play, obviously huge, because that keeps the Eagles from having to be able to get a field goal to tie this up at the end instead of being down by 4. This was, like you said, Ike, this is going to be a tough one to swallow because offense is not without blame as well. Things stifled up in the end.
Yeah.
This is going to be a really tough one to get over. The Eagles will have to do it because next week is a must-win. If you want to win the division, you have to do it next week. Next week becomes a must-win up in North Jersey against the New York Giants, because if you do not win that game, regardless of what Dallas does, now the Cowboys win that division and the Eagles go from the driver's seat of the NFC a month and change ago to being the 5 seed and being on the road for the playoffs.
Yeah, it's when you have the opportunity to control your own destiny, you have to control your own destiny. They were in a good position today to be able to not take next week in the final game of the regular season easier, but have a little more breathing room. They just weren't able to get that done. Like, from your defensive point of view, the first half for the defense was pretty solid. They had that great pick 6 by Sidney Brown. He ran it back for 99 yards, and then they were back on the field. They were almost on the field, that defense, for 15 consecutive minutes. How much do you think that played a role maybe in a breakdown or fatigue? Do you think that played into what we saw in the second half?
It shouldn't have. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they should have fed off the energy of scoring that touchdown on defense. To let a team run the ball against you the way that they did, that's disheartening. And as a defense, that's the last thing you want to allow, is for a team to run the ball down your throat.
All right, well, we're actually going to check in with Dave Spadaro now, Eagles insider over at The Link. Dave, hope you're doing well. Happy New Year. We were just talking about the defense and how they kind of fell apart in the second half. What stood out to you the most on that side of the ball?
I mean, I don't think it was the second half. I don't think they got off the field the whole game. Even when Sidney Brown had the interception, that was deep in Eagles territory. Arizona drove the field. The only time Arizona stopped was late in the first half. I mean, it was a defensive performance that was stunning, shocking. I'm speechless. The defensive line has just been unable to lead the way for this defense. And we've talked about it all season. When the defensive line plays well, the defense follows suit. And the run defense has been very poor. Today it was just abysmal. And, you know, the rest of the defense followed suit, open in the middle of the field. Kyler Murray seeing wide open wide receivers, the very poor tackling, just a defense that has, I mean, against an Arizona offense, okay, I'll give you James Conner, he runs hard, and good tight end, and Trey McBride, and Murray's a threat with his legs, but a total breakdown from the Eagles defense the entire game.
Yeah, when we were scouting Arizona, it seemed like if you just took care of even just Conner and McBride, you had limited things to worry about in terms of Arizona's offense. Why weren't they able to take care of those 2 weapons?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have not heard from the Eagles' D-line. There is no quarterback pressure. The defensive tackles, which we have praised throughout the season, this young mix here, right? Giving energy to Fletcher Cox, etc. where are they? Who's making plays? Where's the play on the other side of the line of scrimmage against an offensive line that is not a good offensive line? I mean, the Cardinals did nothing out of the surprise. They got rid of the football quickly. They ran the middle of the field. They north-south runner in James Conner. And the Eagles unable to play with any sort of physicality. They didn't win that battle. They didn't win the emotional battle. They had opportunities to put this game away 21-6 at halftime. By my calculation, the largest lead the Eagles have had this season at the half. And the defense is not alone today, but the defense unable to get off the field. That is just unacceptable for the Philadelphia Eagles.
The third quarter, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, has been really bad for the Eagles the last 2 weeks. Back-to-back weeks that they've been held scoreless, but also have given up 15 points on the offensive side of the ball. What stunted for you?
Yeah, I mean, really just a weird mix today offensively. Against the 32nd ranked run defense in the league, the Eagles put up 78 yards, whatever it was, on the ground. And then late in the game, an opportunity to go in and score the ball, put the ball in the end zone, and 2 quarterback runs put the Eagles in 3rd and long, and then they come back with a screen pass to kind of settle, it seemed, for the field goal and put it in the hands of the defense. And again, the defense just offering very little resistance. But, yeah, I mean, A.J. Brown, quiet game. Devontae Smith, relatively quiet game. Nice game from Julio Jones. Jaylen Hurts, the Cardinals did a really good job stopping Jaylen and his run game. The Eagles, I mean, DeAndre Swift, I thought, had some good runs and showed some patience. But, again, we look at the Philadelphia Eagles and we think this team is going to be more physical and dominate at the line of scrimmage. And on both sides of the ball today and throughout this kind of this late season period, we just haven't seen that on a consistent basis. That's what I see.
No, we've definitely been lacking a lot of toughness, grittiness, desire, maybe even. Dave, thank you so much. Happy New Year. And hope you have a better ending to today.
Yeah, tough one today. Thanks so much. Happy New Year to all.
So we were talking there about third quarter and how that's kind of been a point of contention over the last 2 weeks, at least for the Philadelphia Eagles. But what's interesting, too, is a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how the first 2 quarters were issues for the Eagles, where they couldn't score points in the first quarter, and they would come in at halftime, make adjustments, and come back. Now it's flip-flopped. What is happening with this team where before it was maybe the game plan to start and making better adjustments, and now it's the adjustments can't be made?
Yeah, I think the adjustments are still being made from a schematic standpoint. It's whether or not the personnel out there is getting the job done. And, I'll start with a position. I'm very familiar with the linebacker position. When you talk about a run game, sure, it starts up front and you got to win the line of scrimmage, but your linebackers have to be physical and play downhill. They have to get off blocks. You can't be pushed past your gap responsibility and allow running backs to cut back and get to the second level and third level. Then I saw far too many times where contact was made with James Conner, and he's still going forward. So that's the physical part that I'm looking at when I look at my linebackers, and I'm saying, hey, we need to be out there getting running backs to the ground. And it just doesn't seem like we're doing enough of that. Far too many times our safeties are in on plays, making tackles, and our linebackers are either being pushed past their gap responsibility or not getting off blocks. And that's where I look at poor run defense. Of course, it starts up front. But those D linemen, their first job is to establish a line of scrimmage, reestablish it. Their responsibility isn't necessarily getting off the block and make a tackle. Their job is to make sure the linebackers can scrape and get free to make tackles in those holes. And that's what we're not seeing enough of over the last few weeks, is that we're not getting the linebacker play that we need, that we had been getting earlier in the year when we had the top rushing defense.
And honestly, as you were talking, I'm thinking in my head of the tackling and the missed tackling. And you talk about the linebacker level and the safeties coming up. There were missed tackles in this game, every single level of the defense. Yeah. You go to the touchdown late in the game from Kyler Murray to James Conner, the one-hander in the end zone. That's a missed tackle from Josh Sweat in the backfield, should have been a sack. Yep. You go to the second level, the first touchdown that Arizona scores, That's a missed tackle from Shaq Leonard in the flat, and it ends up being a touchdown. Then you go to the third level. I mean, there were missed tackles from Reed Blankenship. There were missed tackles from Eli Ricks. There were missed tackles from James Bradbury. There were missed tackles from Avonte Maddox. You go right down the line, and there were missed tackles all across the board. It's going to be in the double digits. PFF, I'll look at those numbers in the morning, but it's going to be in the double digits today. And so that's what's going to lead to them getting 5.5 yards on the ground. That's what's going to lead to 4 second-half touchdowns, and then not being able to get off the field, even in the first half as well, as Dave mentioned. So a lot of it, this was a very underwhelming game from that standpoint. Defensively, just not being able to get off the field, extremely disappointing.
They gave up 221 rushing yards,
Yeah.
the Eagles did. That's the most they've given up this year. Second most was that overtime win over the Bills. And it took overtime to even get close to matching what the Arizona Cardinals were able to do, a team that has a pretty decent run game, but they average 95 rushing yards a game, and they allowed 221. And it just seemed like we all knew James Conner was at the top of everybody's scouting list. If you stop him, you really limit Arizona's options.
I look at these numbers here, and I really envisioned this being flipped completely.
Right.
I really did. I thought the
Yeah.
Eagles would rush over 200 yards today because they're going up against the worst rushing defense in the league. I thought it would be a nice, efficient passing day for Jaylen, throwing when he needed to. And I definitely thought that the Eagles would control the time of possession today. But this was the game that Arizona had from the beginning. You could tell they clearly came out motivated to play today. Whether they wanted to win for Jonathan Gannon or what have you, they came ready and motivated to play today. Their offense led their charge. Other than the interception to Sidney Brown, which happened deep in the Eagles' territory, Arizona's offense moved the ball every drive today. They didn't punt the ball one time today.
One punt. Their only stop was at the end of the second quarter, where basically they played out the string after the touchdown by the Eagles. So you get that second touchdown to Julio Jones. They get the ball back with about 30 seconds left, under 30 seconds left. They throw a check down and they call it, and they go into the locker room. That was the only time they got off the field in this game, outside of the pick six by Sidney Brown. But again, Dave said it. It's not just the defense here in this one. Offensively, you had a couple 3-and-outs, and they happen at inopportune times too. Like you had the opening drive, you go 3-and-out. Opening drive of the second half, they go 3-and-out, and then you get the ball positive territory. I mean, you're basically in striking distance after the onside kick. You are across midfield. You have the ability to be able to put this game away, go and score a touchdown on a short field. And as Dave mentioned, you get that holding penalty for Jordan Mailata, and now once you get to 1st and 20, they're unable to be able to move the football. They ended up with a 3rd and 14, and they kicked the field goal.
Yeah, I'll be interested in hearing Coach Sirianni's explanation of that, like the mindset of that final drive, because I'm thinking to myself, based on what had already happened in the game, meaning our defense was having problems with the Arizona offense, it was too much time left on the clock to try to run the clock out, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were a tough spot. Yep.
Yeah, and they still had 3 timeouts. So I would have liked to have seen us be a little more aggressive and try to get a touchdown there versus playing for the field goal. But again, I can't wait to hear his explanation on that, because that sort of set the tone for what happened late in the game there. I mean, you play for a field goal. Arizona's thinking, we've been humming all day. We can move the ball down the field. They threw it when they needed to throw the ball. But more importantly, they knew that they could run the ball with some success, and they go down and get the touchdown. And we didn't have any timeouts left, not enough time on the clock to get the ball down the field to score a touchdown. Yeah, when I look at the offense, you're right, Fran. There's a couple drives there in the game where you say to yourself, okay, what were we trying to do here? When you get the 3-and-outs against that Arizona defense, you should be able to move the ball with ease. But having a half field to work with 5 minutes to go, to me, that's a time we needed to be aggressive, push the ball down the field, go up by 7, and if nothing else, you're forcing Arizona to score a touchdown, and at worst, you're tied and potentially with a chance to get the ball back again.
It's very interesting that Arizona has one of the worst defenses in the league, led by Jonathan Gannon, who was the Eagles' defensive coordinator. Yeah. And today is the day that they showed up and played their best defensive game. Yeah. How much of an effect, or where did you see the effect of the familiarity play a role in today's game plan?
Well, I mean, they came in wanting to run the football. So this is a lot of different personnel than what JG coached last year defensively. But they've seen something over the last few weeks where they felt like they could run the ball and be successful at running the ball. You saw early that was their game plan. They wouldn't let Kyler Murray throw the ball a little bit off of the run game, but it was clear to me they were coming in to establish the run game. Even when they were down 21-6, they didn't abandon the run game.
That's their identity.
They stuck with it, yeah. Yep. They truly stuck with it. the entire game. And so that allowed them to get back in the game because I don't want to say we took our foot off the gas pedal, but we certainly, even when we got to 28, and I'm saying, okay, this thing is not over with yet. You know, we need a stop here from the defensive side of the ball. And they still found the plays, Arizona, I'm saying, they still found the plays when they needed to push the ball down the field.
Yeah, I think that the big thing, too, when you go back to the Eagles' offense going up against Arizona's defense, and this is not just specific to this game because we've talked about it over the last few weeks, the lack of explosives. I think when you look in the pass game, the longest catches I'm seeing here, a Dallas Goedert catch for 23 and a Julio Jones, that touchdown, and that was off a scramble drill. That was 22 yards. Those were the longest passes in this game. And that's something that the Eagles have been able to hang their hat on over the last couple of years is creating those deep balls to A.J. Brown, to Devontae Smith, even to Dallas Goedert. And that's the thing, that Dallas Goedert, that 23-yarder, that was on the RPO little slide route. So that was a catch and run. That explosive element to this Eagles pass game, just not there right now. And again, it's not just today. You go back to New York last week. You go back to Seattle the week before that. They have not been able to create those big explosive plays down the field. And so all of these touchdown drives, 9 plays, 10 plays, 13 plays, and that can be very difficult to do.
And there was that drop pass by Devontae Smith, that long one down the field that could have been an explosive play.
Yep, no doubt.
Yeah, it's almost inexplicable at this point because
it's tough. Yep.
Everybody expected the Eagles to carve up this defense and have. Did it come down to more so the Cardinals just raising their bar or the Eagles lowering theirs?
I think it came down to the Cardinals raised their bar. I mean, we've watched the Cardinals from time to time this year. They haven't looked this good as a football team on both sides of the football. And the fact that they wanted to come in and play more ball control, keep the ball away from the Eagles, which is why, I don't put as much blame on the offense except for late in the game. The offense just didn't have the ball that often today, and it's primarily because as a defense, we couldn't get off the field. We couldn't get off the field today and allow Arizona to just chew up the clock all day long. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you asked earlier about fatigue setting in and whether or not they lost a little stamina, meaning the Eagles' defense.
Yep.
Probably in the second half because they played so many plays through those first 3 quarters that you do get worn down as a team continues to run the ball on you. I mean, that's a physical style of football. We aren't the biggest on that side of the ball as it is, and that probably did play a little part in it.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, Marisa, the inconsistencies in the second half over the last couple of weeks and how that's flip-flopped from what it was a few weeks ago where everybody was wondering, all right, well, where is the first half offense? I think at the end of the day right now, if you're looking back and trying to compare this team to last year's team, this is a different team. This is not the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. This is not the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles. This is not the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles. Every single year is a different year. And this team right now is trying to find that level of consistency to be able to carry them into the postseason. Figure out what is it that you can hang your hat on. This is what our strength is going to be to carry us through the playoffs. Because right now, they're not hitting on all cylinders. And so they've got one more week now to figure this out.
Right.
You go up to Jersey next week, you got to figure it out.
Your back is against the wall, really, of 1 week.
Yeah.
Where do they start?
And I hate the Meadowlands, too. Just going up there to play that stadium, it's on turf. It would have been nice if it was a game that was meaningless and the Eagles could rest players, but we don't find ourselves in that position. You got to do some deep soul searching. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's not as if you don't have anything to play for. You're playing for an opportunity to win a division, host a playoff game, right? And we'll see what happens with some other teams next week. Detroit still has a tough divisional game they have to play next week. So the Eagles can't look at that game next week and say we don't have anything to play for. There's still a lot to play for next week.
Yeah, and we'll see when that game is going to be. We still don't know at this point. We'll find out later tonight would be my guess. Is it's going to be Saturday, if it's going to be Sunday. My guess is that it will be a Sunday game because now you've got Detroit, you've got Dallas, you've got a few of these teams here in the NFC jockeying for position. My guess is you're looking at a Sunday, probably, honestly, it might be a 1 o'clock, everybody playing at 1 o'clock. I'm trying to remember who Detroit plays.
They play Minnesota.
They play Minnesota. That's right. Okay, so that's probably.
I think it's all divisional games next week. Yeah. So I think Dallas has Washington next week.
So 3 1 o'clocks would be my guess.
And that game is in Washington, I believe.
That's
it.
I believe
Washington.
it's in Washington. Yep.
Yeah, and this is the second season in a row that the Eagles will close out their regular season against the Giants.
Yep.
And last year, everybody could take a little breath, kick your feet up, go get a snack.
Giants rested their starters in that game last year. Yeah.
This is not the same vibe at all. And for as maybe disappointed as the fan base is in this loss, do you even get a sense of how that seeps into a locker room or how they handle that emotionally?
Well, I'll tell you, with our fan base, It's been this way for a few weeks now. So, social media is out there. Talk radio is out there.
Yeah.
Talk radio is out there. So, the fans will voice their opinion. I've already looked on social media. Don't look on social
Don't
media.
read the comments. It's
already pretty bad. But in all seriousness, the frustration, I totally understand. Because to me, it's one thing losing to San Francisco or losing to Dallas. Even going on the road in Seattle, that's a tough place to go play. I played up there. I don't think I've ever won up there, maybe. I think maybe once back in 2001, played at Husky Stadium.
Yep.
But today's game, to me, hits a little harder because it's at home. It's the final home game of the season. Based on what happened last night in Dallas, you're sitting in a position to have the number 2 seed, host 2 playoff games as long as you take care of your own business. So to see them come out defensively and play the way they played today was very surprising, and some of the outrage and frustration will be understandable after this one.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you look at it and say, okay, what of these problems that we've talked about, what is it that can be correctable, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even just for next. I mean, next week is extremely important, but at the end of the day, it's more important.
Really about the playoffs,
It's more important 2 weeks from now, right?
Yes.
Hey, when you get into that wild card round, because the Eagles are going to play wild card round now, they're not going to be able to catch San Francisco for that 1 seed. So you're looking now and say, okay, if we're going to host a playoff game 2 weeks from now, what do we do next week? What can we correct? But at the end of the day, how much of that, from what you've seen, is correct? To me, I still look at it and say the Eagles can flip this switch. It is physically possible for them to turn this around, right? But now it's a matter of, they have to do it. They still have to do it, right? I'm not saying they're definitely going to, but they can do it.
Yeah, and I look at the tackling part of it, right? That to me, that's a mindset, right? You get as many guys to the football as you can. Needs to be more gang tackling versus one-on-one tackling. Some one-on-one situations you can't avoid if you get caught out in the open field. But when you're running the football and they're running up between the B gaps and through the C gaps, you got to get more than one player to the football. You got to get off blocks and come there with a violent disposition, meaning to do bodily harm. I know they don't allow you to do that as much in the NFL today, but that's the mindset you sort of have to have. The talent is there. It's there. And you're not going to change personnel much moving forward. We get Slay back, but other than that, I think pretty much we'll get Cunningham back.
Yep.
He's a pretty good tackler. But it's your mindset, in my opinion. As a defense, at some point, you say to yourself, forget about all the outside noise. You're not running the football on us today.
Yep.
That's man on man, mano a mano. Yeah, I'm going to whoop your butt. You're not whooping mine. So that's, to me, is the thing that they have to come with the mindset of. Can that switch be flipped in time for the playoffs and to make a run? It's going to have to be. And it's going to start next week in New York. That's another team that's going to probably run the ball more and then throw the ball. So you're going to get another shot at it next week. Because if you're the Giants and you watch this film, after we give up 200 and some yards, you're going to get a heavy dose of Saquon Barkley next week.
So the ability is there. The talent is there to flip the switch, as we said. It's almost like it's sitting on the table, and yet nobody has reached in and actually flipped it. So how do you channel the disappointment into execution?
Well, I tell you, it's getting back to work on the practice field. Coach Sirianni setting the tone early in the week. That's really where it starts at. The first time they hand out the game plan, the first time they have practice, I get confused with the schedules nowadays. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday when you have the first practice. But that's pretty much what you need to do is you set the tone early in the week. And I'll tell you another thing. All the talking that gets done, forget about the talking. Talking is not getting it done.
Yep.
It's putting action and putting work into action. And that's what it boils down to. All the quotes, blaming this person, blaming that person, making proclamations. None of that stuff matters. None of that stuff helps. It's getting out on that football field, grinding back, get to work, and then next week playing with a mindset that what happened last week is not happening today.
Right. You can't talk about it. You got to be about it.
Yeah.
If you have a question at home for Ike, here's your time to serve it his way and ask Ike, presented by Pond Lee Hockey. He's going to do his absolute best to answer all of your questions. I'm sure there are many after this game. Brandon Graham is in the locker room right now and was asked about what can be learned from this loss.
Like a lot of long drives.
No, we just didn't make the plays to win it, to help us, and I look at it like all this is building character for us. Like it's how we handling some of this stuff. We know that we can't give away nothing. We got to take everything, and I just want to give Arizona credit. They came in, they played, and I know for us, man, it's gonna happen, and it's happening. You know, we just got to make it through this little storm right now. But we believe in us, and so at the end of the day, I know we're gonna get it right, and I feel so good because you know we're gonna go out next week, take care of our business, and then 0-0 at that point, and everything else is one. It's week to week, and so I hope these guys just continue to keep learning from these moments right here because it's only building our character. It's only going to test us, and so how we going to respond. And so I believe in us, and I know we believe in us. So, man, I'm not worried at all, but it's a lot to be learned, a lot to learn from a game like this.
Brandon, how does your defense?
Certainly is week to week for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Brandon Graham talking about how they can turn the page from this loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Looking ahead to the final regular season, we were just talking about, too, of what they can kind of lean on in order to get things going. Where do you think their biggest strength is right now and how they've been playing that they can really lean into to start to turn the page?
Well, that's the thing is that I think offensively, I think you did a lot of good things here in this football game, right? I mean, we saw a lot of efficient passing from Jaylen Hurts. His ability to create showed up in this game. The run game was there from an efficiency standpoint. They didn't have the ball long enough, ultimately, like from a volume standpoint, for it to matter all that much. Because that's the thing is, remember, I think everyone's going to look back at the run game numbers in this one and say, oh, well, how come he only had X amount of touches? Remember, one of those drives, they didn't touch the ball until very late in the second quarter, and that was at that point they were in 2-minute drive mode. They had a 9-play drive, and all 9 were passes, and so that's going to throw off the run-pass ratio at the end of the day. But I think when you look at it overall, there were 2 drives that were 3 and outs, and then everything else they were able to put up points in that. So I think offensively, you've kind of hit your rhythm. You're starting to do some good things on that side of the football, but defensively, there's going to be a lot that they're going to have to correct.
Yeah, and I don't know. Can you get it all fixed in 1 week? I agree with Fran. Offensively, I like what we've done the last 2 weeks. That's back-to-back games of 30 points. So I like seeing that. I like the fact, the one interception at the end, the Hail Mary, I don't even count that.
Right,
So you're really looking at you had to play the clean game from that standpoint when you take care of the football.
Jaylen was 18 to 23.
18 to 23. Again, I think with the offense, it boils down to they didn't have the ball enough today.
Right.
They just didn't have the ball enough today. Defensively, there's something to a team coming in and saying, we're going to run the ball right at you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? That's
offensive.
It really is offensive. It really is offensive. And as a defense, you got to take offense to that.
Yep.
And at some point, you got to say, this ain't happening anymore. So I would imagine going into that game next week, you're going to get a different mindset from this team. Because you got to remember, we played the Giants last week, and the Giants came back in that game and almost stole that game late in the game. So the Giants are going to show up next week looking to play spoiler and get a win to end their season. The Eagles have to match them and say, you know what, we're going in here, forget about their record, forget about the opponent. This is about us, and we need to go in here and establish a style of play that we want to carry into the postseason.
All right, let's hear from head coach Nick Sirianni now as he speaks with the media.
Offensive drive, you went on the 1st and 20. You went QB run, screen to Kenny. Why go conservative there? Were you playing for a field goal in this?
Yeah, I don't think that's a conservative there. I mean, if they're blitzing a bunch of gaps right there, you're running a gap scheme that has a chance to hit for big yards that we needed to get back into it. We could have thrown it there too. We chose to go there. It didn't hit. But I think that sometimes with the gap scheme stuff that you do, it's more of you got to do some different things to cancel out gaps if they're bringing everything out, and so that's why we went that way. It didn't work. The screen, we're 3rd and what was it? Yeah, that's tough you're gonna have a hard time converting, and we got to get ourselves in a range. The wind was blowing into our face a little bit on that side. Earlier in the game, so we needed to get in better range to make sure that we took a 3-point lead there, and hey, they went down and scored, and we didn't win the game.
Put in some management. Why were you without timeouts at the end?
I'm sorry?
Why were you without timeouts at the end?
Yeah, we had a couple miscommunication things that we had to use timeouts early on. Right there, that's always going to be on me, and I'll always take that. If we don't have timeouts at the end of the game, then something obviously went wrong with most likely as a communication thing, and I'll take that.
What's wrong with the defenses today?
Obviously they controlled the game with by running the football. obviously we weren't good enough there. Stopping the run, and they were able to take a lot of chunks off the clock. I think they did a good job executing. But we know we have to be better putting the guys in positions to succeed and also executing.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm listening. Go ahead, Zach.
It's week 17. You've made a coordinator change. How do you fix it at this point?
Yeah, I do believe I still believe in the guys in that locker room, the players. I still believe in the coaches. I think we got the guys in this place to get it turned in the right direction. We don't have much time, obviously, right? We got one more game before playoff starts, and we got to do everything we can do to get back on track this upcoming week. I think there's been spurts. Obviously the last couple games where we played good ball on defense. Tonight wasn't one of those times.
Do you think Gannon's knowledge of your defense, or your schemes anyway, I know it's a new defense, new players, new coaches, but do you think that had a factor in him maybe knowing how to attack at certain points?
I think he probably thought about a game, the Washington game last year, where the Washington was able to control the clock and keep our offense off the field, and he probably thought about that. You'll have to ask him. I don't know, but good game plan by them, and they obviously executed, and hats off to them.
Situations where Hurts slid on those produce some long third downs. Whenever you ran into those situations, did you expect for those choices to be made?
He needs to protect himself at all times. He played an unbelievable game. The ball didn't touch the ground very often. I don't know what his all his stats were, but I know the ball didn't touch the ground. He was in complete control of the game, and he needs to protect himself in those times. He took a hit on one of them earlier, but obviously he's able to get chunks in the run game. So we still need to be able to use that. But when it's time to call it quits, he's got to do that, and we want him to do that.
The onside kick. What's your mindset when you get that?
Go score. Yeah, go score. But while you're obviously there was 5.5 minutes left on the clock. Try to take some time off the clock. If you don't, that doesn't mean you don't. If you hit a big one to, if AJ goes and catches that slant, which he did, and takes it all the way for a touchdown, right? Score. Don't not try to there, but try to waste as much time as possible while still trying to get a touchdown. That you're into a 4-minute mode, but you're still being aggressive because they still have all the timeouts. So you're able to pass, you're able to get out of bounds to get the first down, all those different things. They executed, they got off the field, and they stopped us to a field goal. It just didn't work out tonight.
Did you know it was coming?
What's that?
Kick.
I have no idea. That was a good job by Eli. Good idea. Good job by our special teams. They continue to do a lot of good things. Coach Clay has them ready for anything like that, any situation where, with them having 3 timeouts, Jeff, and there's 5.5 minutes left to go in the game, we always tell them to be alert for, see the ball before you leave, and Eli did a good job of doing that and getting on it. But they weren't in their onside. There was a surprise onside kick, so, we didn't know, obviously, that was coming, but good execution by our guys.
A couple more. One win since Thanksgiving, I think it is. What's your message to the team at this point? What can you say to them to keep them
Stick together. Everybody's got to stick together. I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to point the finger at different things, and everybody's got to stick together, right? We win as a team, we lose as a team, and together is the most important thing that we can be right now. Still, we still have opportunity to get in. We're in the playoffs. We're going to, a lot of teams would want to be in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs. We still can do some things here. And our goals are still in front of us. Or, can you get the 1 seed? Can you win the division? I don't know. I know you can't get the 1 seed now. But, can you still win the division? Yes. Stick together because we still have goals and we still have things that we want to accomplish.
Two more. A long time. How much harder do you make that path if you have to go on the road for?
Yeah. Again, obviously it's been done, and all those teams have been able to do it. Obviously you always want to play at home. You always want to win the division. You always want to play at home. Path might be harder, but shoot, like I said, our goals are ahead of us. We got to get things fixed, and we got to get them fixed fast. We're not where we want to be right yet as far as, how we're playing right now, and how we're coaching right now. But we got time to get it fixed, and we'll get to work, back to work tonight and tomorrow.
All that was happening defensively, how did you guys, what did you make of how they were able to run the ball on you guys today? What are the problems that you saw?
Yeah, obviously that's something I got to go watch the tape. Did different things to try to get it stopped. It just felt like nothing was working right there. That's why there was such a big difference in the time of possession. But again, that's anytime we come out and something like that, that's always look at me first, and we'll look at it. We'll get it. Get our ideas together of how we get that fixed. But they executed. We didn't.
By the way you're playing?
Obviously, we're not playing the type of football or coaching the type of football we want to be right now at this time. Again, we have to go back to the drawing board and think through everything, what we're doing, and so I'm concerned. No, I mean, I don't think we think that way. All I think we think is how do we get these things fixed? How do we get these things fixed? How do we put the players in positions to succeed? How do we execute, as a team? And so that's what's going to be on our minds is how do we get these things fixed? Worry and concern doesn't get any problems fixed. It doesn't fix anything. Getting in there, grinding, figuring out what the answers are, that's what gets things fixed. Worry and concern does not.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Nick Sirianni there after the Eagles' 35-31 loss over the Arizona Cardinals, talking about finding the answers in terms of heading forward. Where do you think the answers lie?
Well, it's in the details of the work. I mean, you go back, they look at the film or video, and they figure out things that they could try to do better. Coming next week, you're going to see a lot of this stuff. This is a copycat league. If you're the New York Giants, you're running a lot of these same plays offensively at our defense that we saw today from Arizona. And I don't know if putting on the pads and, having one of these rigorous practices out there this late in the year, I don't know how much that does versus really combing through this film and then taking a serious look in the mirror and having that truthful conversation with yourself, each individual, because that's really how it gets fixed. Each individual understanding where they could have played better, where they didn't do their job, and making that commitment to their teammates, but first and foremost to themselves, that they're going to go out there and get these things corrected. Because you don't go from being one of the top running defenses in the league to seeing what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks without having the answers to fix it. So the detail is in the video. And once they watch it and figure out where these missed tackles came from, where you're not in the same gaps, things of that nature, and you have that honest conversation with yourself, I think as a defense, those are things that can be fixed. Because here's the thing with the Giants next week. Now, I'm not going to say they can't throw the ball. Tyrod Taylor is certainly a professional quarterback, and he's been around a long time, so they can make some plays. And I like the Robinson kid. He's got a little speed to him. But they don't have very many weapons on that Giants offense. So it's not like it's a complicated offense that you have to figure out to stop. So they're going to simplify things and just run right at you. And to me, as a defense, okay, bring it on. That's what you want because you don't have to worry about all the trickeration. So to me, look at the film and be honest with yourself and understand that, okay, I didn't put my best foot forward this week, and I need to go out there and do that next week.
And it's interesting, too, because that's what a lot of people said about the Arizona offense is not a very complicated offense, but definitely gave the Eagles defense a problem.
And that's the disappointing thing about that today is they didn't do anything complicated. I didn't see anything complicated.
How they played their identity.
Yeah.
Downhill runs.
We just heard from Nick Sirianni, but let's hear from QB1 Jaylen Hurts as he spoke to the press.
Just thinking about ways we could have been better. Been more efficient. Just really taking advantage of our opportunities. That's the goal. That's what we strive for. We strive to take advantage of everyone and, credit to them and in the way they played and hung in there. It's just great credit to them.
That sequence on the second to last drive when you were backed up 1st and 20, It was run, and then the pass to Kenny. What could have been done better in that sequence there?
Which one?
Second to last drive after the onside kick. When you're backed up, it was first and 20, then second and 18, then third and 20 again.
Yeah, I don't think we executed it well enough. The situation as is, so I have to watch the film and kind of assess it after doing that.
As far as finding a rhythm, you didn't have the ball a lot. I mean, tough to do to find a rhythm when you're not on the field as much.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, and you know, you look at kind of, I mean, some of the games that we've lost, especially in the past, where they ran the ball really well, and then they kind of kept the ball out of our hands too. And so it's very important for us to take advantage of all of our opportunities, and you know, we just didn't do that. You know.
Nick said his message to the team was to stick together as one of the team leaders. Just kind of how do you do that here with 1 week to go in the regular season?
Yeah, focusing on the things you can control. Focusing on the things you can control. Purely that. Putting your focus on you doing your job. Challenging yourself. Committing yourself to bring the best out of yourself. And leaving it at that. You know, trusting in that process of that.
When you're not getting the ball as much, do you feel like there's more urgency to do more when you do get the football?
No, I just think there's the urgency and mentality, and that mentality as is, regardless of what else is going on. You definitely want to take advantage of every opportunity. And you know, these games go a ton of different ways, a ton of different times, you know, but we get all 11 in all 3 phases, executing at a high level, and doing that, you know, good things should happen.
They had control of time of possession in this game. Whenever you get in the second half,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Whenever they had time of possession in the game, it limits your possessions in the second half. How do you regroup as things are winding down? What was the conversations that were leading up to the field for those moments?
It just comes down to executing and taking advantage of the opportunities.
Jaylen, last week you converted that tough 3rd and 20 to AJ. When you get the play call, the screen to Kenny, is there any type of conversation, or is your mind just on executing it?
Yeah, it's about making it happen. It's my job is to execute that and do that.
Would you like to be more aggressive in that situation?
I like to do whatever works. I think, again, it's result-based. You know, we live and die on whatever we go out there and do. That particular opportunity, it didn't get us what we wanted in the end, but it's tough to be in that situation. You get the holding call. I don't remember the sequence, but you get the holding call, and you kind of go backwards and then get enough yardage in those first 2 downs to put ourselves in a good situation. So, you know, they give us the ball inside the 50. We just have to handle and execute and manage that situation a lot better.
Jaylen, you guys have typically been a team that does a great job of finishing games and closing. What do you think has been missing here the last few weeks to not do that?
Well, I don't think we've done that all year. I think a lot of the games we've lost have been because of the lack of finishing in those situations. And so it's another learning opportunity for us. And, you know, we still have everything in front of us to do what we want to do. Still got to clean things up. And there's still a sense of urgency to do that, you know. And in the end, it's about us having our hands on deck to do so.
In those moments on the field, I mean, you guys have been through a lot of them in the second half. Do you sense something before a play or where the confidence level is and then understand it after that? Do you find a trend in there?
No, it's just a matter of executing it. That's my job. That's what I put my energy towards. And, you know, it's just making it work.
Was there anything you presented defensively that you think was unique to them because of Gannon's background here?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he sat there in those meetings with us. He's been in those, in those meetings. He's heard, you know, kind of what we're thinking in certain situations, and we practice against him every day for the last 2 years. So, you know, they played a great game. They showed great effort, and they made the plays when they need to make them.
Last one.
First half versus second half, Jaylen, you finished drives in the first half. That was kind of the difference. They weren't able to in the second half kind of turn the 180. Is that just the negative plays putting you behind?
This is lack of execution. Like you can credit that to whatever you want, but I think regardless, you know, the motive is just to execute. You know, when you do that at a high level, you're supposed to win. You should win. You know, if you don't do that, if you're not winning, then maybe you're not executing at a high enough level. And so it's just a moment of reflection, you know, a moment of reflection and knowing we still have everything in front of us to learn from everything that's going on as a team and put the right energy towards it and towards the things that we can control and being the best team we can be. So, you know, it's something we got to grow from. Yep.
Growth is a subject we've heard a lot today, but also something we've heard come up a lot throughout the season. Even when the team was winning, but they weren't winning as cleanly as we all would have liked. It was all about growth and learning and evolving. Where can they begin to evolve when the regular season is starting to wind down and most other teams have everything pretty fine-tuned?
Yeah, when you get to this point in the season, you know, you pretty much, you are who, you know, Bill Parcells used to say, you are what your record says you are.
Yep.
And they have enough footage out there, and we've seen the highs and we've seen a little bit of the lows this year. But what we've seen all year long, even when they were at 10-1, they were just able to overcome some of those things, right? And they found ways to win. You know, a lot of it was due to the things Jaylen did in the second half of games where he would take over things. But this is a team that's shown that they are inconsistent. They really have. Now, the thing you didn't see today was turnovers, right? You didn't see turnovers. And that's what makes this loss more frustrating than the other losses, because at least you would be able to put your finger on something.
Yep.
Other than, to me, the defense, and I keep harping on those guys because that's where I'm sort of hanging a lot of the responsibility from today on, is that they didn't show up to play a physical brand of football on that side of the football. When a team runs the ball down your throat the way Arizona did today, man, that is disheartening. It almost takes your confidence away from you, because I know as players, you're in the huddle, you get to that sideline, and you're looking around at each other like, man, what are we doing? You know, I'm taking on this block. Why aren't you coming to make the tackle, or this and that and the other? Like, that's what starts to happen as players when something as simple as just running the ball at you and we can't stop it is going on.
You know, I think to your point earlier about what the wins early in the season looked like, two words I never want to hear next to each other again. Ugly win. Like, I am done hearing about that, because anything is better than what we've experienced over the last 5 games, right? Yeah. They were 1-4 in the last month and change. And you would take all of those wins.
And we said that in the beginning of the year.
We said it every week. We said you would take that over feeling like this on any of those games. Now, I think at the end of the day, all those guys, you're going to look back and try and reflect on those lessons learned in those games. You know, whether it's needing to make a come from behind win in overtime against Buffalo, and you go all the lessons learned. And we heard the very first person we heard speak today in the show was Brandon Graham, and saying, hey, like, there are lessons to be learned in this. We have 1 week to learn those lessons and put those lessons into action, and that's what they're going to have to do here over the next couple of days.
There's a lot of scar tissue for this team over the course of this season that they can refer to, and the different ways that they were able to win, the different ways that they lost, and how they can kind of piece that all together, showing their resiliency by leaning on that past experience. As you said, this is their 4th loss in 5 games for the Philadelphia Eagles, but Kevin Byard said that they just really need to play a lot cleaner heading forward.
I mean, you got to gain confidence by playing good football. Obviously, we didn't, play clean enough today, so I don't think anybody in this locker room or on this team confidence is wavering or anything like that. It's just, it's an any given Sunday league. You know what I mean? No matter what the records are late in the year, you got to be able to stop the run. You got to be able to run the ball and all those things. You got to be cleaner in situational football, and when you're not, you're going to lose. So that's just the reality situation. So we just have to be cleaner there on the small things, the details, the fundamentals, the techniques, and that's what it comes down to. Confidence. You gain confidence when you play good football. So I don't think anybody individual confidence is bad. It's just you got to be cleaner. That's really what it is.
Kevin, what stood out most about that?
Sticking with the secondary now, let's listen in on what James Bradbury said is his message to the Eagles defense.
like our leader was saying, don't separate. I think it's, of course, you can watch film and it's easy for you to point the finger and say who messed up and who did this wrong. But at the end of the day, it falls back on us as a whole. We're a team, we're a defense, we're very confident in ourselves. We just haven't showed it. We haven't really showed it with the results. And we got to come back in here, get ready for work, and try to improve.
Hearing from a couple defensive players now, but let's turn our attention to the offensive side of the ball, because if you had 2 Julio Jones touchdowns on your bingo card today, well, congratulations, because I don't think many people saw that coming. But it was his second touchdown that caught the eye of Fran, and he broke that down in this week's Ricoh Review.
All right, so for this week here on the Ricoh Review, we're going to look back at a second touchdown here for Julio Jones. Happens late in the second quarter. The Eagles in a 2-minute drill. All passes on this drive to get into the high red zone, and they're able to capitalize here on this play from Jaylen Hurts to Julio Jones. Let's see how it happens, because Jaylen Hurts is going to drop back here as we let it run, and he wants Dallas Goedert on an outbreaking route near the sideline. So you see Dallas, he's running the speed cut here, but the corner on that side is squatting on this route. A.J. Brown is running the clear out route. They're hoping that he can lift this corner and allow room for Dallas Goedert to work, but Jaylen sees correctly. He reads the technique of this corner and says, all right, this route is taken away. So now Jaylen has to get in creation mode, and he steps up against the edge rush from Arizona. So we can let this run, and we can see that the quandary that Jaylen Hurts is going to put all of these zone coverage defenders in, because when you have a lot of eyes on the quarterback, when Jaylen Hurts breaks the pocket, you've got to make a call as a defensive player. Are you going to rally up and try and make a tackle, or are you going to sit back in coverage and make sure you take away the throw? Jaylen Hurts has the ability to beat you in a number of different ways. So that's a tough spot for a defender, especially when you're on an island here. So when Jaylen Hurts steps up, now he's got Andre Chachere, former Eagle. He's seen Jaylen Hurts up close for a full calendar year plus. He knows the kind of plays that Jaylen Hurts can make. Well, Jaylen's got eyes for Julio Jones, because Julio, he ran a route where he basically worked to the post, and now he's working back towards the sideline. He's going to settle into this soft spot. He's right on the same page as Jaylen Hurts. Jaylen's able to get this ball up and over Chachere, and the Eagles are able to capitalize for a touchdown and extend their lead going into the locker room. Outstanding job from Jaylen Hurts. Post-snap read, and then creating in the post-snap phase. Outstanding job for the Eagles. They're able to reach the end zone.
Now is your chance to vote for the Toyota Player of the Week. Go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/Toyota Player of the Week to cast your vote and get a chance at a brand new Toyota. Here are your options for this week's Player of the Week. First up, Sidney Brown. I think everybody was excited to see this for Sidney Brown. He has so much energy, so much excitement and enthusiasm that he plays with. He took it back 99 yards for the pick 6. This was an incredible play because he made a lot of people miss on that. Yep. Then we have Jaylen Hurts. 78.3% completion percentage, 167 yards, played a pretty solid game. And then we also have Julio Jones, who had 2 touchdowns on the night, his first 2 touchdown game in almost 3 years. Yeah. So I know we're not high on the defense right now, but Sidney Brown had a great play. Are you going more offensive? Where are you standing?
Love Sidney Brown, one of my favorite rookies. Want to give it to him, but I got to give it to the old man. Got to go with Julio. Come on, man. Julio with 2 touchdowns. Got to show Julio some love. Jaylen certainly deserved it, too. He played a great game himself. But I'll go with Julio.
Julio Jones, the oldest Eagle to score 2 touchdowns since Irving Fryer, who's older than Ike. I think we got to
throw that in there.
I like Julio Jones.
My former teammate.
That's right.
Irving Fryer, yes.
Yeah, I love Sidney Brown. He always plays like he shot out of a cannon. And this time he actually made it. Got some points with it there. So for the second time in 3 weeks, the Eagles are going to be facing the New York Giants. They just lost their game today by 1 point. Yeah. What are the pros and cons to playing a team so close in succession?
Well, the con is for me as an Eagle, you don't want to play a team this close together.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever played a team twice in 3 weeks?
I don't believe so. You know, as you pointed out, back when I played, yes.
Back in my day.
Yeah, back in my day, they didn't necessarily make the schedule like they do now, where they try to get these divisional games late in the season. Yep. So I don't ever recall playing a divisional opponent twice in 3 weeks, maybe twice in 5 weeks, but not necessarily twice in 3 weeks. So, You know, I think the familiarity is there. The Giants, as you saw today, and they played the Rams out there in Los Angeles. They came to play, losing by only 1 point. So you take that game along with last week's loss to the Eagles by 1 possession. They're playing some spirited football coming down the stretch. And so to me, that's what you have to expect next week, is that you have a dangerous team with nothing to lose and be prepared for everything. This is one of those games where the Giants will empty their playbook trying to figure out ways to get this win.
Yeah, we know the identity of the defense, a lot of man coverage, a lot of blitzing, so you know what to expect there, no changes. Offensively, Tyrod Taylor in at quarterback, and they gave the Rams a hell of a fight. Lose by 1 point, 26-25 in that game this afternoon. And so we know that they gave the Eagles defense some issues in the second half. Once they made that switch at quarterback, the game plan's going to be tweaked. Playing for Tommy DeVito over the course of a week is different than doing it for Tyrod Taylor, a veteran who can beat you with his legs and with his arm. I mean, it's a huge game. It's a must-win game for the Eagles next week.
An absolute must-win game for the Eagles. And this is also your reminder, Eagles fans, to vote for Lane Johnson for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. Head to Twitter and use the hashtag WPMOY challenge, followed by Johnson's handle at LaneJohnson65, or vote at NFL.com/honor/man-of-the-year/vote. That's going to do it for us on this New Year's Eve in Philadelphia. The Eagles lose 35-31 to the Arizona Cardinals. So here's for a happy New Year's resolution of a win in the Meadowlands next week.
Yeah, here's the 2024 being.
I was going to say, get 2024 rolling.
Yeah, let's get 2024 rolling, because the way 2023 has ended has not been fun.
Agree.
All right, for Ike, Fran, and our entire production crew, I'm Marisa Pilla. Happy New Year. Have a safe and happy night tonight.